Hello, what's up, Mr. Ippolito students? This is Mr. Ippolito, and today I'm going to take you through pages 19 through 22 in the Constitution Interactive Notebook so you can see exactly what my expectations are, and I can make it so that you're not doing any more work than you have to. So this is page 19 right here, and on page 19, I want you to answer this portion right here. You do not need to worry about question 2. So question 2, just for the sake of time, just going to try to make your life easier. I want you to focus specifically on rights and freedoms in the Bill of Rights. So for example, and you'll notice in the instructions it says, do not just list the amendment or the number, the title. For example, if you think the Fourth Amendment is one of the most important, then you would write Fourth Amendment, and then you would write protects against unlawful search and seizure. So what is the amendment and what does it actually do? So do not just list the number or just the title. You need to actually tell me what it does. Number and what it does. Okay, and then that is it for page 19. Now we're moving on to, this is page 20 here. And on page 20, you'll notice it got a little cut off because this is a PDF version here, but over here there are states. And so what you do need to do is a drag and drop, and you need to drag the states in the order in which they ratified the Constitution. This is an easy Google search, but I do want you to see the timeline and rebuild the timeline of ratification when these particular states ratified the Constitution. So you're going to do a drag and drop over here on this side. On the top, what happens when a state law conflicts with federal law? Well, the federal law wins, right? Federal law wins, and that's because of what's called the Supremacy Clause. So you don't even need to look this up. I'm telling you, the federal law will win because of the Supremacy Clause. Now, I will tell you this: if the federal law is conflicting with the Constitution, then you could argue that the state law is actually better because the Constitution is above all else, right? So you've got the Constitution above all else, and then you have federal laws, and then you have state laws. But if you can prove that your state law is better because your state law complies with the Constitution and that federal law is unconstitutional, then the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. But if, as the question says, if a state law conflicts with a federal law, the federal law is going to win because of the Supremacy Clause. Okay, research to find an example of the Supremacy Clause coming up in a conflict. No, we're going to skip that. We need to move on, and this is no. Don't worry about that. And don't worry about that. So essentially, for page 20, you are doing the ratification timeline, and you're doing the top blue box right there on the Supremacy Clause. All right, just keeps getting better. Here we go. This is now page 21, and on page 21, this is on ratifying the Constitution. So analyzing this political cartoon right here, question number 1, what do the pillars represent? So the pillars represent the states, right? So they represent the states. Or I could say the original 13 states, right? The original, forgive my messy script here, the original 13 states. They were the ones that were called upon to ratify the Constitution. They needed 9 out of 13 in order to ratify the Constitution. So you can see here, if I count, and if I zoom in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then this cartoon is basically depicting... Is that supposed to be, I'm not even sure, because New Hampshire was the 9th. That was the 9th one to ratify. And then the ones that were still left over, I think were New York and Rhode Island and North Carolina, and then there's one more. Because all the rest of them, you can see there's Connecticut there, there's Massachusetts there, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire. Anyway, let's keep going on these questions. What point is the cartoonist trying to make by having the hand from above add Virginia to the row of pillars? Well, I would say probably that Virginia is important. Virginia is more important. Or, like Virginia is chosen by God to... Oh, yeah, that's okay. So that's VA there. That's VA right there. So that's Virginia. So this hand of God is like delivering Virginia. So you could interpret that a few different ways. Virginia is chosen by God. It's the chosen state. Or maybe God wanted Virginia to make sure to ratify the Constitution, so they were part of the United States officially. A few different possible answers there. And then finally, number three, why was it important that all states ratify the Constitution, not just the minimum requirement of 9? Well, I would say that if you don't ratify the Constitution, then you are out, right? In other words, if you don't ratify the Constitution, you're not part of the United States. You're essentially, Rhode Island and North Carolina, they were the last two to ratify the Constitution. They essentially would have been treated like foreign countries because they would not have been included in the United States. So it took them a while. I don't think they ratified until like 1790, 1791. Like, it took them a while to ratify, but eventually they did. But otherwise, yeah, you're out and you're basically treated like a foreign country because that's what they would have been had they not ratified. They would have been a foreign country, and they would not have been able to, they would have had to go through the immigration process if they wanted to, go from living in Rhode Island to living in Massachusetts, or go from living in North Carolina to South Carolina. That would have been weird. So it's good that they eventually did ratify. Okay. And then if you want to learn more about that and the ratification process, you can click there if you'd like. And then finally, we're on page 22 here. And so this is, now I don't consider these two to be the first two political parties. I would consider these to be factions. The Federalists became a political party, and then the Anti-Federalists, they would become, what's the other political party? The other, besides the Federalists, it's the Republicans, right? The Republicans, also known as the Jeffersonian Republicans, also known as the Democratic Republicans. So they were groups, they were factions. I would not consider, at this stage of the game, before the Constitution is even ratified, I would not consider the Anti-Federalists officially a party. I would consider them a group or a faction. So then you have to go through, and I'm not going to do all the work for you, but you can click on these links here to learn more and learn about each group. So what did they believe in? Well, the Federalists, I'll give you a little bit. The Federalists believe in, first and foremost, ratifying the Constitution, right? So they wanted that Constitution ratified. It is, do they have the important leaders? Yeah, I'll fill this in for you. So the important Federalists, the people who wanted the Constitution ratified, number one, I'm going to say, is Hamilton. I'm also going to say the author of the Constitution. Of course, the one who did most of the writing is going to be one who wants the Constitution be ratified. That's going to be James Madison. You'll notice that Alexander Hamilton and James Madison were both authors of the Federalist Papers. We've learned about the Federalist Papers. And then finally, I would put John Jay in here. He was also an author of the Federalist Papers. I would also consider Washington, G-Dub. I would consider George Washington a leading Federalist. In terms of Anti-Federalists, George Mason, he's going to be the author, end up inspiring most of the Bill of Rights. I would say that Thomas Jefferson is also considered an Anti-Federalist. He did not trust the Constitution. He thought that it was a power grab on the part of these Federalists. It's also important to note that James Madison, who at one time was a Federalist, James Madison eventually, when the two political parties form, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, James Madison is going to move over and kind of defect over to Thomas Jefferson's camp, is going to end up becoming a close friend, a close ally, and actually a neighbor. They lived not too far away, both in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so anyway, but at the time of the ratification of the Constitution, James Madison was thoroughly in the Federalist camp. So key beliefs. So you can talk about that there. The justifications for their beliefs, in other words, why did they believe what they believe? So, for example, believed that, if I were going to ask why did they believe in the ratification of the Constitution, I might say they believed that without it, our nation would not survive, right? And then you can kind of take it from here. Again, I'm not going to do all the answers for you. Regions of support. So regions of support means where were they getting their support from? What regions of the country? So regions of support for the Federalists, I would say, would be the cities, right? The Northeast. Particular cities, Boston, Philadelphia. New York City, of course. So cities like that, right? And then regions of support would be the rural areas, rural farming communities, right? And then the South and the West. And then finally, foreign support. In other words, just which countries did they kind of align themselves with? Well, the Federalists, most certainly the Federalists aligned themselves with Britain. This is an easy one. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate this. And then the foreign support, the country that the Anti-Federalists supported was France. Okay. So really, I've done a lot of this for you. You need to fill in this one and this one still. Don't leave those blank. And then ultimately the outcome. What was the outcome of the debate over ratification? What was ultimately the outcome? Well, ultimately the outcome, this is not a trick question. So the Constitution was ratified. But, oh my. The Constitution was ratified. But the Bill of Rights would follow. In other words, and I think I'm kind of giving these answers away, right? So the Federalists believed very strongly in ratifying the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists believed very strongly, you can write this down, I'm not going to write it down for you, believed very strongly that if we were going to ratify the Constitution, if this is the direction that we're going, then we have to have a Bill of Rights. And the reason why we have to have that Bill of Rights is to protect the states and the people, right? The rights of the states and the people. Look at all these answers I'm giving you. So ultimately, this was kind of the compromise, right? Between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists is, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to ratify your Constitution for you, Federalists, but you better include a Bill of Rights. And sure enough, they did. And a Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, that was ratified in 1791. Okay, so I think if we're looking through, I think this is all that you need for pages 19 through 22. I know this is a little messy, but hopefully that will help kind of guide you through. Again, don't need to do this part. Yeah, so just do the part that I've asked you to do. Hopefully this kind of served as a mini lesson as well. If you don't want to quite do all of that digging into those articles, this is what you need to have. This is what you need to do. And if you have any other questions, then you can visit me during map time. Visit me during that open map time, any Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday from 1:15 p.m. to 2 p.m., and I'd be happy to answer your questions. All right, and then if you're trying to get it done this week on time, then of course you want to visit me on Thursday afternoon from 1:15 to 2. All right, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much, and thank you for completing this assignment on time. Take care. Bye-bye.